Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so let's review. Do you remember everything we studied yesterday? Krishna's response to Arjuna's question as to the symptoms of a self-realized soul. What was Krishna's response? Anyone remember? Nobody answers?
Okay, Prabhu, Maharaj.
Sorry?
Okay, you have to do your duty, like you have to work. You can't just not work, you have to perform your duty.
Well, there's a verse, I think it's 259. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parta manogatan atmani vatmanatushta stita pragnastadurchate. Alright? It's something like that. Let me see. Arjuna's question is 54, so the answer is in 55. The symptom. Arjuna's question is to the symptoms, and Krishna responds. When a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So this is Lord Krishna's first reply. This is the actual symptoms of a self-realized soul, that he's free from the desire for sense gratification. His mind finds satisfaction in the self alone. So please note that. It's text number 55. That's the response, Krishna's first response. And then he goes on to describe other symptoms. Prabhupada spoke about what was most important. Do you remember? What symptom was the most important?
Speech, Maharaj.
Speech, right. So how does a devotee speak? Will he do monavrat? Should he be silent?
No, Maharaj.
What should he do? How will a devotee of Krishna who is self-realized, how will he speak?
Yes, glorify the Lord. Yes, Manjari Mother.
He only speaks about glories of Lord and related topics. He does not speak about any material objects or anything related to material. No nonsense at all.
Okay, yeah. All right. We spoke about our own experience. We spoke about our own experiences of param dristva, the higher taste in Krishna consciousness. That when we really immerse ourselves in something, when we really become absorbed in doing something for Krishna, we transcend the demands of the body. We forget about eating and sleeping, and we can work so hard just because we're getting so much bliss we're getting so much pleasure out of service to Krishna. So that's one principle, that when we become really dedicated and really absorbed in trying to do something for Krishna, we transcend the demands of the body. And then reasons why, and discuss the relevance of karma yoga being superior to karma sannyas. What were some of the, why is it superior to karma sannyas? What is one reason?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in karma sannyas, if there is not enough purification, there is a propensity to fall, there is a possibility of falling down. And in Nishkam Karma Yoga, continued work brings jnana and purity. Hare Krishna.
Now, it's not very clear for me, Prabhu. I'm sorry, what you were saying just didn't, it's not being, somehow, I don't know, maybe it's my microphone, I don't know how yours is, but it was...
Maharaj, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Maharaj, what I'm just trying to read loud here. I hope it's not disturbing. What I said was in karma sannyas, there is because of not enough purification inside, there is a possibility of a fall down. But in case of a Nishkam Karma Yogi, it's a slow, gradual process, and there is better chances of success.
Yeah, but you didn't identify any reasons why.
Maharaj, as soul is so active, by taking early sannyas, it becomes passive, and then senses creates the problem of due to the desires towards the material objects. So being active in yoga and joining with the Supreme, it's better to go for karma yoga, doing service.
Yes, we need to have proper engagement. There has to be some activity. We say the idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so karma sannyas, giving up work, is all very well, but if one has not purified his existence by proper activities, then he will not be able to maintain that state of inertia or inactivity. How long can you give up work? The nature of the soul is to be active, and we need activities. So the karma yogi will be engaged in all kinds of work for the service of Krishna. And if you read through the 3rd chapter, we read about, now Lord Krishna gives 2 examples of liberated souls who also continued to work. Although they were fully transcendental, they didn't need to work, but they continued to work. And the reason why they continued to work was they showed an example. So the example of the karma yogi is very important. That they're active, they're working. That example is very good for the common people. If the common people see everyone just doing nothing, sitting around and doing nothing, doesn't create a good impression. So the point about being an example for others is very important. Who knows what 2 examples, which 2 persons are identified as being, very great souls? They didn't need to work, but still they worked. In chapter 3, yes?
The Janak Maharaj and Krishna himself.
Yes, right. Janak Maharaj and Lord Krishna himself. They both didn't need to do any work, but still they worked for the purpose of showing the right example to others. So that's an important point. The relevance of karma yoga being superior to karma sannyas it just doesn't create the right example for others if everyone gives up work and does nothing. All right? We become parasites. We're simply living off others. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, we're going to go ahead. We're going to speak today about Sanatan Dharma. Yesterday, actually, some devotees brought up the topic about religion because Prabhupada had given the statement that religion without philosophy is sentiment and philosophy without religion is speculation. So here today, just coincidentally, we're going to discuss about Sanatan Dharma. Dharma actually means occupation. And we often, it's not exactly religion, but it's more occupation. And so we talk about Sanatana Dharma as our eternal occupation. The Lord is eternal, and the living entities are all eternal. And we have our eternal occupation. And that is what Sanatana Dharma is. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord because we are all qualitatively one. The Sanatan Dharma, or Sanatan Dham, or sky, the Sanatan Supreme Personality, and the Sanatan living entities. The Lord descends to reclaim these fallen conditioned souls, to call them back to the Sanatana eternal sky, so that the Sanatana living entities may regain their eternal Sanatan positions in eternal association with the Lord. The whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to revive our Sanatana occupation, or Sanatan Dharma, which is the eternal occupation of the living entity. That's from Srila Prabhupada's introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada is describing, defining to us actually Sanatan Dharma. It's the eternal occupation of the living entity. Yesterday I also gave some example which Srila Prabhupada had given us. He was describing the word Dharma, and he said it's not exactly religion. You know, religion, what is religion? Well, generally we speak about faith, and faith, people's faith can change. Someone may be a Christian, they may be a Hindu, they may be a Buddhist or a Muslim, whatever. They can change their faith from one tradition to another. But this Dharma, this Sanatan Dharma, that doesn't change. That remains the same. It's our eternal occupation. So we want to understand this concept of Dharma. Prabhupada taught the example, he said, just like the Dharma of sugar is sweet and the Dharma of chili is hot, in the same way, living entities all have their Dharma. If you like, we could describe it as nature. Their nature, what is the nature of the living entity? And that nature, that Dharma of the living entity is service. Because each and every living entity is engaged in some kind of service. The mother will serve her child. The soldier will serve his country. The worker will serve his company. Everyone's engaged in some kind of service or another. But the ultimate service is service to the Supreme Lord. And that is Sanatana Dharma. Other dharmas are not eternal. We know we come together as living entities, we come together in a country or in a family, But in course of time we're separated. So that is not eternal service. But our connection with the Supreme Lord, that is eternal. He is eternal, and we as spiritual beings are also eternal. So on the spiritual platform, our eternal occupation is service to the Supreme Lord. This is a famous verse in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? Very famous. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata adbhutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamya aham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So the Lord comes at a particular time when there's particular need for him, when there's this decline in religious practice. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata adbhutanam adharmasya, a rise of irreligion, tadatmanam srijamyaham. At that time, I manifest myself. So dharma samstapanarthaya, the Lord comes to establish the actual religious principles, to teach people what is actually the path. Right? Abhutanam, predominance, adharmasya, irreligion. So Kali Yuga, we're in this unfortunate situation. There's a predominance of irreligion. And what is actual religion is often described as irreligion. And what is often irreligion, people will accept it as being real religion. So it's very, very difficult in the Kali Yuga to establish what is actually religion. And here is the other verse, these two verses, very well known from the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhunam vinas chaya chaduskritam dharma samstarpanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So dharma samstarpanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Lord describes when he comes. First of all, what does he do when he comes? He comes to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants. And he also comes to re-establish the principles of religion. And the Lord said, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So you can see the Lord appearing. Sambhavami yuge yuge. Doesn't just come one time. Sometimes we say he's Tri-yuga. He only comes in 3 yugas. But actually he says he comes in every age. Sambhavami yuge yuge. Millennium after millennium. And his mission in coming, dharma samstarpanarthaya, to re-establish the principles of religion. Or, if you like, the principles of dharma. And Prabhupada explains there are different levels of principles of religion. There's, just like Prabhupada says, there's higher mathematics and very elementary mathematics. But in elementary mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2. And similarly, in very advanced mathematics, 1 + 1 is still equal to 2. So whatever is taught in the elementary level of religion is also valid on the topmost level of religion. So the Lord's mission is to establish these principles of religion. We spoke yesterday. What are the principles of religion? If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, in Srimad Bhagavatam it's described when Maharaj Parikshit was ruling the kingdom, ruling the earth, He was traveling around the earth and he was making sure everyone was following religious principles. But it happened that one time he was shocked to see that someone was dressed in the form of a king. And this person was clearly not of a Kshatriya nature. He was actually like a Sudra or lower, but he was dressed like a king, and he had a sword in his hand, and he was chastising the bull and the cow, and the bull was standing on only a portion of one leg. So the mother cow represents the earth, and the bull represents Dharma, or the principles of religion. And just as there are 4 legs on the bull, there are 4 principles of religion. Satyam, Socham, Daya, and Tapa. Satyam, truthfulness; Socham, cleanliness; Daya, mercy; and Tapa, austerity. So these 4 principles are the basic principles of religion. But there's also higher principles of religion. That is just simply elementary principles of religion. Keeping clean, being merciful, being truthful, and doing some austerity. All right? So, for the purpose of establishing the principles of religion, the Lord is describing his purpose in appearing. The Lord comes himself, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, personally comes to establish the principles of religion. And how does he do that? He does it by speaking the Bhagavad Gita. This is from Srila Prabhupada's purport to this verse, the same verse in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The principles of Dharma or religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord directly orders at the end of the Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto him only and nothing more. Right? So here Prabhupada is telling us what is the highest principle of religion. I was telling you what is the elementary principles of religion. Cleanliness, mercy, austerity, truthfulness. That is elementary. But the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna only and nothing more. Later, when we come to the 18th chapter, you will hear what is the meaning of surrender. It's described in Srila Prabhupada's purport. There are 6 principles which are connected with the surrender of the soul to Lord Krishna. So, we're going to speak now about the following what is called Varnashram Dharma. Earlier, we had spoken about the principles of dividing society, that there are 4 Varnas and there are 4 Ashramas. Right? The 4 Varnas, meaning the 4 occupations. Brahman, Kshatri, Vaishya, Sudra. And the 4 Ashrams, Sannyasi, Vanaprastha, Grihastha, Brahmachari. So these divisions of society are there for the purpose of organizing society. People should be guided according to their different psychophysical natures. Some people have the nature to be Vaishya. They're always thinking about doing business and buying and selling. And they have the Vaishya tendency. Someone else by nature may be Kshatriya. They're an administrator, they're a manager, they like to control They're good at giving shelter and protecting others, and they're kind-hearted and generous. This is Kshatri. And then the Brahmana, his duty is to study Shastra and teach Shastra, to worship the deity, and to teach others to worship the deity. And they can also accept charity and they can give charity. So these are the occupations of a Brahmana which they're meant to be engaged in. It's sometimes pointed out that it's unfortunate that in the Kali Yuga, in this age, Brahmanas today are expert in only one of these 6 occupations. Which occupation do you think the Brahmanas are most expert in? Would anyone like to say?
Accept charity.
Sorry?
Yes, Prabhu. Maharaj, Vaishya.
What did the Prabhu say?
Vaishya.
No, I gave 6 occupations, 6 activities. Which one is the Brahmana most expert in? I mentioned 6 different occupations. Teaching the scriptures and studying the scriptures, worshipping the deity and teaching others to worship the deity, accepting charity and giving charity. Which one are they most expert in?
Mukesh Prabhu.
Maharaj, accepting charity.
Yes, except they're expert in taking the charity. Yes, they will come and they will want the charity. This is remarked even 500 years ago. It was like that. So, the Krishna consciousness movement wants to set a higher standard. We don't want to create brahmanas like that, who just simply have the motive to live off others. Rather, the brahmanas must be self-sufficient. They should be able to live very, very simply, to minimize their demands and their needs, and to give the greatest benefit to others by their teaching. Right? Okay, so here's a statement from the scriptures. Kovarta apto bhajata swadharmata. A non-devotee, fully engaged in his occupational duties, does not gain anything. Do you believe it? Do you believe this? A non-devotee, fully engaged in his duty, occupational duty, does not gain anything. From Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 5th chapter, meaning Narada Muni instructing Srila Vyasadeva.
Maharaj, I think it's half verse.
Sorry? What did you
It
say?
It is half of it, half verse.
Of course, yes, it's only half of the verse, yes. What's the other half? You want to read it for us?
I don't have it handy, but it says that even the devotee who engages in devotional service is not complete. He's still better, even if he's not doing his swadharma. He's not able to do his swadharma. So devotional service is highest, something like that.
Yes, well, we're speaking about non-devotees. We just want to point out about non-devotees at this point. Okay. Someone who's not a devotee. That even though they may do their duty according to Varnashram, but they don't actually gain anything. You may say, oh no, I get paid, I get my salary. Yeah, but ultimately what do you gain? In terms of eternal existence, in terms of your eternal existence as a spiritual being, what is your position? Anyway, since Mataji brought it up, we'll read the rest of the verse. It's also quoted in Bhagavad Gita. You can see in 3 places. It's there in text 2, chapter 2, text 40, chapter 3, text 5, and chapter 6, verse 40. So it's really quoted 3 times. Very important verse. Chakvasvadharmam charanam bhajam hare bhajam apakvota patet pato yadi yachakva badram abud amushyakim govarta apto bhajatam swadharmata. Translation: if someone takes to Krishna consciousness, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras or execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from his standard, there is no loss or evil for him. But if he carries out all the injunctions for purification in the Shastras, what does it avail to him if he is not Krishna conscious? So this is the point. It's a very important verse for us as devotees, because of course we've come to Krishna consciousness and there will be challenges, there will be difficulties, we may not be successful. But Sri Narada Muni is encouraging all of us that even we come to Krishna consciousness, that there's no loss or diminution. And we were studying that verse previously, that a little advancement made saves us from the greatest danger. Swapam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. A little advancement made. So, but if you don't have any Krishna consciousness and you simply do your duties, you don't gain anything. There's no benefit to you. So, you may follow Varnashram Dharma, but if you're not Krishna, if you're not becoming self-realized, if you're not developing Krishna consciousness, there's no benefit. It's useless. Srila Prabhupada explains, the animals, they have no regulative principles, but human society must follow regulative principles. That is called Varnashram Dharma. So, Varnashram Dharma is also material. That is not spiritual. From Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Calcutta, 1974, lecturing on 1st canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 6. So, Varnashram Dharma is a material activity. Following the principles of Varnashram is not spiritual. So, what is the benefit of following Varnashram Dharma? Can anyone say? What benefit do you get from following Varnashram Dharma?
Purification of the senses and gradual elevation to higher standards.
Yes, where did you get that from? Where are you reading from?
So I've already read Maharaj, so I didn't know the quote. I've read from Srila Prabhupada's only, but I don't know from where it should.
Anyway, it's it helps us if you can give us from Prabhupada's purports. It's actually there. If you look in text number 2nd chapter 31, 32, 37, and 46. You will find different references about the benefit of following Varnashram Dharma. Right? Why don't you just take a few minutes and just go through these purports on this section. Lord Krishna did speak about Varnashram Dharma. Do you remember? It was in this section of the second chapter. So it begins with 31. Everyone please look at your Bhagavad Gitas. Give me some reasons from the purport of text 31. Why there's some benefit in practicing Varnashram Dharma.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in verse 31, I could find on the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for the spiritual understanding. As you said just now that Varnashram Dharma is a materialistic thing, but the thing is, if you don't follow that, there is no scope for you to be, stepping higher into your spiritual development. So that could be one.
Okay, that's correct there. Prabhupada did mention this. Stepping stones for spiritual advancement. Now, although Varnashram Dharma is material, it does serve as some stepping stones for making progress to the spiritual platform. Right? So that's there in 31. Is there another point there in 31?
Yes, Maharaj, in the end, discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the order of higher authorities serves to elevate one to the higher status of life.
Yes, right. That's also there. Text number 31, purport, right at the end. That it can elevate us to a higher status in the material world. Right? For example, can you give some example how people would be elevated? Maharaji?
Maharaj, the example is just in the next verse, that is 32, where Lord Arjuna is, where Shri Krishna is telling to Arjuna that if he conquers his enemy, he would enjoy the kingdom. And if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets. Lord Krishna is saying that you are a Kshatriya, so your dharma is to fight. And if you're going to fight, then you are going to advance, spiritually. Otherwise, people will scorn you for not fighting.
Yes, but coming back to 31, we were talking about being elevated to a higher status.
Maharaj, it's there for this sacrifice, animal sacrifice by the Brahmins. The animal get directly human body, direct elevation.
Okay, what about human beings?
Human beings, there is...
How are human beings elevated to a higher status?
Kshatriyas, if he killed in the battlefield, he attains the heavenly planet. It's there.
Yes, but even on this planet, one can be elevated to a higher status.
Maharaj, by discharging their specific duties.
Yes. So, how do we... But I just wanted to hear how, in what way people could maybe elevated to a higher status. I think... Yes, go ahead.
If I'm like a Vaishya mentality, so I'll be doing a business way better than the Brahman, Kshatriya and Sudra, because my intellect and psychological nature is more involved and better equipped to earn money rather than administrating it or doing service to someone else. And similarly, Kshatriya will be much better administrator or leader than a Sudra mentality people. That's what.
Yes, this is the point that I'm thinking about, right? The status in terms of caste, in terms of varna, that generally we think of the Brahmana as being the head of the social body. And the Kshatriya, he's the administrator. A Vaishya would be under them. The Sudra is under the Vaishya, like that. And so one may be Sudra, but if he follows Varnashram, he can be may become a Vaishya. The Vaishya, he can be elevated, he may become Kshatriya. The Kshatriya, he may be elevated, he can become a Brahmana. That is elevating to a higher status of life. Ramayana, yes?
Maharaj, it's forbidden in society. This social transmigration is forbidden. A Sudra cannot be a Brahman or Kshatriya.
A Sudra cannot be a Brahman or Kshatriya?
No elevation is possible in our social system.
Huh? In what?
In our social system, doesn't recognize the elevation from one burner to another.
Yes, but we're talking about Krishna conscious. And in the regular society, just by simply practicing Varnashram Dharma, the strict following of Varnashram Dharma is not based on birth, but it's based on guna and karma. That is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am the creator of these divisions of society, and I created them according to guna and karma. Chatur varnam maya shristam guna karma vibhagasha. Krishna created these divisions not by birth. That is not the proper application of Varnashram Dharma. So if one practices the principles of Varnashram Dharma and follows them strictly, one can be elevated to a higher status. And the higher status would be to come to the position like Vaishya or Kshatriya or even Brahmana. And we read about Vishwamitra. He was Kshatriya, he became Brahmana. He became Brahma Rishi, right? And so it's possible. One should be known not by birth, but by his guna and karma. So elevate to a higher status is there in 31. And then there's some point in 32, you've already mentioned in 32, what were the points? What's the benefit of following Varnashram described in 32? Tell me again.
Swargadwaram aparitam.
Yes, Swargadwaram apavritam, opening the doors to the heavenly planets. And that's if he fails in the battle, but on the other hand, he may win the battle, and so he could conquer and enjoy the kingdom. Either way, by following Varnashram, both things are possible. Actually, that's 37, conquering and enjoying the kingdom. That's in text number 37, could conquer and enjoy the heavenly kingdom. But Swarga Dwaram Apavritam is there in 32. And what about 46? Chapter 2, text 46. What's the benefit of following Varnashram?
Maharaj, by following the Varnashram Dharma properly, as we have just discussed, that one can be elevated and one can become a self-realized soul. And a self-realized soul means understanding Krishna and one's internal relationship with him.
Yes, very good, right. Gradual development to self-realization. That's mentioned in the purport of text number 46. Gradual development to self-realization. Understanding we're not the body. Okay? So those benefits are there for Varnashram. Now we're going to talk about Krishna consciousness. Because in Krishna consciousness, well, let's first of all look at the benefits of practicing Krishna consciousness. Here, text number 40 from the 2nd chapter. All right? Niha bikramana shosti prad yavayo navidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahatopayat. In this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Right? What is the fear? What is that fear? Not just death. Everyone has to die. What's
Repeated birth and death?
Huh?
Repeated birth and death, Maharaj?
Well, that's there for everyone in the material world. But there's some very special danger.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
Going in again 84 lakh yonis or species, repeating that cycle?
Yes, and particularly going where? Where should we be most afraid of going? Going into the lower species of life.
Yeah.
Entering into the lower species, the animal species, or the plant, or the trees, like that. That is very dangerous, to enter into those kind of species. If we are so sinful, if we're so covered by the material energy, you know, just like in Damodar Leela, you had the two sons of Kuvera, Naligriva and Nala Kuvera, they became trees, and they had to stand as trees. That is a great punishment, a very severe punishment. So to be put into the body of a tree, it's very dangerous. We should be very afraid of losing the human form of life. So if we can help people to make a little advancement on this path, then this can save us from that kind of fear. Prabhupada says, activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. So Prabhupada is praising the efforts of someone to take up Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada mentions that what should be the mood? That we act simply for the benefit of Krishna, without any thought of anything in return. That is the highest quality of work. And if we can even have a small beginning of that mood, then it's very praiseworthy. Prabhupada continues, work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, and that will give one a further chance for elevation. From the purport of the 2nd chapter, text number 40. So what are the benefits of practicing Krishna consciousness? Tell me some.
Maharaj, in the purpose, in the verse 40, it says, a work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. So in the, and it says, that Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. So there is no fall down for the person in Krishna consciousness. For example, if your practice has been a little incomplete in this birth, then next you will be given a human birth, maybe in the family of a great cultured Brahman or in aristocratic family, where you will be given chance of further development. So a little work done will also be carried forwarded. It will, not be diminished.
Okay. Yes. Any other benefits of practicing?
Maharaj,
Yes?
Maharaj, our human birth is assured.
I'm sorry?
Next life we will get a human birth. That is for sure.
Okay.
We will not be degraded.
We don't get any benefit in this life? If we take up Krishna consciousness, we have to wait for the next life before we get benefit? We won't get any benefit now? Are you saying?
Yeah, we will get, this life also will be elevated, will be peaceful.
This life will be elevated where?
Elevated in Krishna consciousness towards that goal. We will walk few steps in that direction if it is not completed. Next life.
What are some of the ways, how does it actually come about that we are benefited by practicing Krishna consciousness in this life?
Prasadam adhigacchati. We will attain peacefulness.
But there's something more which you haven't quite identified yet, which we're getting.
Maharaj, in verse 41, it says, when one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subjected to the dualities like good and bad.
Okay. No longer subjected to the dualities. There's still something more. I'd like to hear it from you that there's one point more which is very important, which is really the potency of Krishna consciousness. We discussed... Yes, Prabhu?
They're raising hands, so I'm sorry, Maharaj.
Renunciation of the material conception of life.
Yes, but how does that come about? How do we get that? In order to develop that kind of mood about to give up material life.
Association of pure devotees, Maharaj?
Yeah, what is the effect of association of pure devotees?
A strong faith.
No, you're not getting... My point is, which I wanted to hear from you, is that it frees us from sinful reactions. Have you heard that before? By practice of Krishna consciousness, it destroys past sins. Our past sinful activities, the reactions which we are suffering, they're all removed. The seeds of sinful desires are all removed by devotional service.
Is it technically called as a Klesh Agni, Maharaj?
Klesh Agni. Well, anyway, let me put it into English. I'm not so familiar with Klesh Agni. What is it you're talking about? The burning of the miseries, burning up the miseries?
One is immediately relieved from all types of suffering.
Okay, but you don't get that. You have to understand why you're getting relief from suffering. Because it's destroying the sinful reactions. When we engage in pure devotional service, it will burn up the seeds of sinful activities. This is described in the Nectar of Devotion. In the very first 2 chapters of the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes about this. How there are different stages of sinful desires. There is Kuta and Bija, there is Parabdha Karma, and there is Aparabdha Karma. And by practice of devotional service, we destroy all 4 stages of sinful reactions. That is the benefit of Krishna consciousness. Just like when we go around Tulsi, we're chanting, right? That yani kani chapapani, brahmahatya dekani, even the killing of the brahmana, even the reactions which come from killing a brahmana can be removed by circumambulating the Tulsi tree. Of course, it doesn't mean we go around killing brahmanas, but the potency of chanting, the potency of worshipping the Lord, the potency of worshipping Tulsi and chanting the holy name is that it destroys sinful reactions. And we all have sinful reactions. We're all here in this material world, and we bring with us sinful reactions. And this body is the result of our sinful activities. But we can purify ourselves by practicing Krishna consciousness. Right? Of course, this is also discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, particularly in relation to the pastime of Ajamila. And Ajamila, he's chanting the name of his son and how he got relief from all of his sins. All right? Work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness. Even after the loss of the body, at least one is sure to have a chance in the next life, being born as a human being, and that will give one a further chance for elevation. Okay, group exercise for you. How many people are here in the class today?
44, Maharaj.
Huh?
44.
44. Okay, so how many groups can we have? 11. 11 groups of 4.
Yeah.
And the first question is, under what circumstances following Varnashram Dharma is necessary? And then, second question, what are the qualifications required for beginning practice of Krishna consciousness? Give support from Bhagavad Gita 231, 35, 326 and 335. Right? So you're 4 people in a group. You can each take one verse and you can analyze and pick out the proper references to answer these 2 questions. All right?
Yes, Maharaj.
So don't take too long. But how long will we give you? How much time do you think you need?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. We'll give you 10 minutes. So, who is going to check the time? We want someone to check the time and have everyone back in after 10 minutes. All right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Ravidas Prabhu.
We are in the same group with Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, I'm not in any room, it says that.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, how are you here?
Yeah, we are in the group with Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Oh, Maharaj is this.
I'm in the group, eh? Okay.
Is it correct way? I mean, the Prabhuji is divided in a correct way, or?
Well, don't worry about it. Just let's look at the question.
Go ahead, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, first question is, under what circumstances following Varnashrama Dharma is necessary?
Now there are 4 verses we have to look at, right?
Yes. The
231.
231.
chapter 231.
And 3 verses from chapter 3, 5, 26, and 35.
Yes.
Okay, so which verse? We have to take 1 verse each.
Okay.
I will take 335, last one.
Okay, I'll take 3:5.
I'll take 231.
Okay, so I am 3:5. Okay, Hare Krishna. So I have read the 3.5, which is here. I found the circumstances of following Varnasrama Dharma is actually the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in occupations dictated by the illusory energy. Because the body is only that vehicle to be worked by the spiritual soul, which is always active and cannot stop even for a moment. So that's related to the Varnasrama Dharma based on the Bhagavad Gita chapter 3.5. Maharaj.
So what are you saying? To reply, how are you responding to the first question? Are you responding to the first question?
Yes.
At what point one can give up Varnashram Dharma, is it? Or who can give up Varnashram Dharma?
Not give up Varnasrama Dharma. I mean, from this text, actually, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the occupation, engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in the occupation dictated by the illusory energy. So that's the relations to the first question, I think.
What is the first question? Do you have a copy of it?
Yes. Under what circumstances following Varnasrama Dharma is necessary?
All right. And under what circumstances following Varnashram Dharma is necessary? So if one is Krishna conscious, does he have to follow Varnashram Dharma?
Yeah, in Krishna consciousness, yes.
Did you read that? Didn't you read the purport? What did it say? Let's say if one is Krishna conscious, if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, does he have to follow Varnashram?
Actually, in this text, no.
Maharaj, Krishna consciousness is spiritual, so...
Did Prabhupada follow Varnashram Dharma?
Maharaj, can we say that Krishna consciousness is about all the varnas in ashrams?
Sorry?
Can we say that Krishna consciousness performing, Krishna consciousness is above all varnas in ashrams?
Following Krishna consciousness? Well...
Is above, it's higher?
Yes, Krishna consciousness is transcendental, right. Krishna consciousness is transcendental to Varnashram. But did Lord Chaitanya follow Varnashram? He was a sannyasi. Was he a strict sannyasi?
Yes, he was very strict.
Yes, he was a very strict sannyasi.
Yeah.
Right? And was he a strict grihasta?
Yes, he was. He performed Grihastha very nicely.
Yeah, and was Prabhupada...
He was perfect student.
Was Prabhupada following Varnashram?
Yes.
He followed. When he was the first Maharaj, he performed his duty perfectly well. And then when he became a sannyasi, he followed his ashram very perfectly well.
Right. He followed Varnashram, but his devotee is Krishna conscious, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't need to follow Varnashram. But he did it. He did it. He did follow.
So what we can say about this marriage?
Well, what's the question?
Our question is, we are soon going to break out. Maharaj, can I give my one? It says that it's 335. It says that when one is under the spell of modes of material nature, one should follow prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. So it says that in Krishna consciousness, rather than performing others' duty.
Recording in progress. This meeting is being recorded.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, this is another breakout room.
Yes, we're all back in the main room.
Oh, okay.
The breakout rooms are all finished. We're all closed. Okay. We're back in the main room. We had our 10 minutes.
10 minutes passed. Went so fast.
Yeah, went very fast. Okay, here's the question again. Oh, Krishna. Here's the questions again. Under what circumstances following Varnashram Dharma is necessary? Would anyone like to take up the response to this first question?
Yes, Maharaj, our group has come to the point.
Okay. What group number are you?
Number 6.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Maharaj, we require to follow the Varnashram Dharma till we are liberated from the bodily concept of life. Till we become Nistrayaguna.
Until we become liberated, we should follow Varnashram Dharma.
Right.
Okay.
Before the stage of Nistrayaguna.
Okay. Did Lord Chaitanya follow Varnashram?
No, Maharaj. He told that it is external.
Do you mean he didn't follow Varnashram? Was Lord Chaitanya not a strict sannyasi?
He's the greatest sannyasi, Maharaj.
Huh?
Greatest sannyasi.
So, how can you say he didn't follow Varnashram?
He told that this is Iha Bhajya.
But that didn't mean don't follow it. He was asking Ramananda Roy a question. He asked Ramananda Roy a question about the ultimate goal of life, the highest purpose of religion from the scriptures. And when Ramananda Roy quoted Varnashram, he said that is external. But he never said that we don't have to follow it.
Maybe Maharaj, it is within the material conception of life only, Varnashram.
But it may be in the material conception of life, but that doesn't mean that we don't follow. Did Prabhupada follow Varnashram?
Krishna Maharaj, can I answer?
Yes.
I'm from room 1, Maharaj.
Oh, you're in
From
another group.
31 purport, when even a Kshatriya should follow for giving the protection, because Kshatriya means itself is those who are hurt and giving protection. For Brahmana, it is for like sacrificing animals is the when that time it is needed. Even for the to elevate one to the higher platform of life under higher authorities, to serve higher authorities, we have to follow
you're taking us away from the topic. You know, I was already discussing something else, and you've come on a completely different topic. You know.
No, Varnashram is must to follow, even coming to Krishna consciousness. But first, we have to fill the duty towards Swadharma. So that is must for even Krishna.
So I was asking, did Srila Prabhupada follow Varnashram?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yes. Did Lord Chaitanya follow Varnashram?
Yes, he was a great sannyasi. He followed all, even he was a good grihastha also.
Yes, right. So the point is, even the great devotees, they strictly follow Varnashram. Because although it's external, but it's part of the Vedic culture. Right? What their consciousness internally is different. As you say, we have our Swadharma. But still, the principles of Varnashram Dharma are there, and everyone follows them. And who especially needs to follow Varnashram?
Prabhupada mentions those who are on material platform should follow Varnashram Dharma.
Right. Right. Liberated, they should be following the Varnashram. And we spoke about how by following Varnashram, they can elevate their status. They can purify their existence. They can become so following Varnashram. They're not liberated, but they can be greatly benefited by following Varnashram. And those who are liberated souls follow Varnashram because the example is very important. Right? So then we ask, what are the qualified consciousness?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, as such no qualifications are required. Anyone with an inclination or desire can start it.
Anyone with
the desire or inclination can start it.
Yes, there's no prerequisite. There's no special qualification required for beginning practice. Simply one must be sincere and have the genuine desire to practice Krishna consciousness and to be willing to take instruction and to be guided. Then they can be allowed to practice Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is, there's no restriction. It's not like we have some, oh, you have to be high caste, oh, you have to be at least Vaishya, Kshatriya or Brahmin before you can become a devotee in Krishna consciousness. No. Or we may say, oh, you have to be educated, you have to be a college graduate. No. You have to be able to read and write. No. What you do have to be, you have to be sincere and you have to be genuine in your desire to want to practice Krishna consciousness. And you're willing to take instruction and to be guided by others. So, that is the nature of Krishna consciousness. Going ahead, Varnashram plane, Swadharma, is called Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding of Varnashram Dharma. Very important. Human civilization begins from the stage of course, in the modern times we don't have any. I thought that within our Krishna consciousness movement, that we can show people how nice Varnashram Dharma. In other words, within our Krishna consciousness movement, although we don't designate people as Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, we do have designations of the ashrams because we're a spiritual society. We're not, we're not concerned with the ashrams. And so we see the different ashrams there in our Krishna consciousness movement. And that's one way of organizing society. Dharma allows that, to recognize the nature of people and to engage them according to their nature. So, on the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashram Dharma. Our actual nature is recognized by our position in the Varna and Ashrams. And the whole purpose of the Varna and Ashrams is meant for spiritual understanding, that it will help to bring us to a higher consciousness. In text 31, purport, second chapter, as long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, or specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. So, the swadharma is, it changes, it can become spiritual. When we are conditioned, it's on the bodily platform, but when we become liberated, then our swadharma becomes spiritual. And this is the idea. We want to come to the higher consciousness. We want to become liberated, and it's possible. The principles of Varnashram help us to gradually achieve purification. But Krishna consciousness itself is more powerful. If we simply follow Varnashram, you have to follow Varnashram for a long time before you could ever really elevate yourself. But in Krishna consciousness, we can very quickly get the benefit. Srila Prabhupada explains from the purport of the 3rd chapter, text number 26. A slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because by direct Krishna consciousness, one can have all the results one would otherwise derive from following one's prescribed duties. So, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here, we don't need to do all these Vedic rituals and follow all the principles of the Varnashram. If we simply become Krishna conscious, then we can get all of the benefits in one blow. It's so much easier, much more effective. Simply become Krishna conscious. Take up the service of Krishna. Hearing and chanting, worshipping, all of the activities which devotees are engaged in. We do everything in Krishna consciousness, and we'll do everything, whatever is required. We don't mind. We won't say, oh, I'm a Brahmana, I cannot clean. You know, on the material platform, the Brahmana, he won't take the brush and sweep the floor, and he won't go and clean the toilets or so on, wash the pot. He says, I'm a Brahmana, I can't do that. But a devotee, he'll do whatever is required for the service of Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is transcendental to Varnashram. The devotee of Krishna will do anything and everything for the service of Krishna. Without question. He just simply wants to please Krishna. And Krishna notes that surrender of the devotee. But in Varnashram, you know, oh, I'm a Brahmin, oh, I'm Kshatriya, I'm Vaishya. Like we all have each one has their own restrict what they're going to do. So we said Prabhupada followed Varnashram, Lord Chaitanya followed Varnashram, in the sense that they were strict in their ashrams. They strictly followed their ashrams, going preaching and not accumulating things, living very simply. They were very renounced. And they were very strict in Grihastha life also. In their Grihastha life, taking care of their family. Lord Chaitanya took care of his mother and his wife. When Srila Prabhupada had his wife and children, he took care of them. His father also, like that. So in Grihastha life, they followed the principles, and then they went on to renounce the world, and they followed the principles in the higher ashram. But it's not that they had to follow all the principles of Varnashram Dharma. The rituals, they didn't have to do all the rituals, the Vedic rituals. There were things which Prabhupada did, which usually sannyasis would not do. For example, Vedic culture says sannyasi is not meant to cross the ocean. But Prabhupada crossed the ocean. If he didn't cross the ocean, how could he go to America? But the Vedic culture was like that. That sannyasi is not supposed to cross the ocean. Sannyasi is not supposed to wear sewn cloth. Sannyasis not supposed to talk to any woman. No woman can come near. But for preaching, Srila Prabhupada would do all of these things. He encouraged many lady devotees in their preaching. Very elevated Matajis like Yamuna and Malati Mataji, and they were very advanced ladies. Prabhupada engaged them in Krishna consciousness. And so Prabhupada did things which were surprising people, like bringing deities to the West and establishing deities in the Western countries where there's no Ganga water. Prabhupada didn't worry about these things, the Vedic rituals. He simply worried about Krishna consciousness, being Krishna conscious. That's the important thing. All right, so here's another statement by Prabhupada. So at the present moment, there is no possibility of persons following the principles of Varnashram Dharma, either here or anywhere. Everyone is Varna Sankara, Kalo Sudra Sambhavaha. Varna Sankara meaning unwanted population. And Kalo Sudra Sambhava, in this age, Kali Yuga, everyone is by birth Sudra. In this age, everyone is a Sudra. Nobody is a Brahmana. Nobody is Kshatriya. Nobody is Vaishya. Sudra. So in this age, you won't find anyone following the Varnashram Dharma. Now, you cannot again introduce this system of Varnashram. It is not possible. But if one takes to Krishna consciousness, automatically he becomes immediately a Brahmana and above the Brahmana. A Vaishnava is above the Brahmana. Prabhupada's lecture on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verses 18 to 30, in Los Angeles, 1968. So Prabhupada is describing that nobody's following Varnashram Dharma in this age. And we cannot reintroduce it. But if we take to Krishna consciousness, then immediately he can take the position of a Brahmana and become even more than the Brahmana. Prabhupada pointed out, he said, just like in universities, they have departments where they teach subjects like Greek or Latin. You know, these languages are dead languages. They're not spoken anymore and not used much. But still, they keep the departments in the university. So Prabhupada said, in the same way, we should try to keep the elements of Varnashram within the society. Keep some elements to show people how effective this method is for organizing society. For example, the ashrams, and how, people in the beginning, they're students, and then they enter into family life, and then from family life they retire, and then after retirement they may even go on to renounce. So that is the arrangement of society for spiritual progress. And the different occupations according to the different natures. You have the intellectual, the Brahmana. You have the administrator, the Kshatriya. You have the mercantile class of people, the Vaishya. And you have the worker, the Sudra. So everywhere in the world, you find these 4 different occupations. It's not just only in India. It's everywhere in the world. Prabhupada went to Russia. Prabhupada saw in Russia, at that time Russia was communist, it was socialist. And Prabhupada saw someone is sweeping the street and someone is riding in the car. So can you say everyone is equal? One person's riding the car and other person is sweeping the road. We cannot say everyone is equal. They have different duties, different occupations. So therefore, in the world everywhere, there are 4 different occupations. These 4 divisions are there, naturally. It's the arrangement of Lord Krishna himself. All right, so we're going to look at what we covered today. We spoke about the appearance of Lord Krishna to establish Dharma. When Lord Krishna comes, he comes in every age. His mission is to re-establish, right? To give pleasure to the devotees, kill the demons, and re-establish the principles of religion. Why does he need to re-establish the principles of religion? What happened to them? Who can say?
To reclaim the fallen souls, Maharaj.
No. What happened? Why did Krishna have to come and re-establish the principles of religion?
Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna had given the same instruction to sun god many years back, but over a period of time, the principles of religion, they get removed. So that's why Krishna wanted to reestablish.
Yeah, in course of time, they became lost, right? Yoga nashta parantapa. What happened? Why were they lost? Yes, why were they lost? What happened to the principles of religion?
Yeah, over a period of time it was lost and adharma came up. So principles of irreligion were on rise.
Why?
There was no proper Guru Parampara.
Maybe.
Disciplic succession was broken.
Yeah, maybe. Yes.
Because there was a rise in irreligion due to demonic personalities in the world.
Sorry, not clear.
Maharaj, because there was a rise in irreligion due to the demonic personalities in the world.
Oh, okay, demoniac people in the world. Well, the demons in the world, are they promoting religion?
No, Maharaj.
They're promoting irreligion, right? The demons, they're promoting their irreligious activities. But Krishna came, he established Dharma, he brought the principles of religion. But in course of time, somehow they were lost. They were lost. One reason could be that people changed. They began to deviate from the original teachings. The actual teachings which were given in the beginning became twisted and became distorted. The pure message was lost. And when you change something, then there's no more potency anymore. If the principles, if we change anything, it won't have the same effect. And this is what happens. Although Krishna comes and establishes the principles of religion, but in course of time, people introduce, they think they know better, they have ideas, and they make changes, they make alterations, and ultimately the whole thing becomes useless. And then Krishna has to come again. He has to come and re-establish the principles. Okay, and then the ultimate principle of Dharma, surrender to Krishna. The ultimate principle, right? We spoke about elementary mathematics and higher mathematics. So this is the ultimate principle, which is surrender to Krishna. That Krishna comes to teach that. By speaking Bhagavad Gita, he not only tells Arjuna but he encourages all of us to surrender to him. Give up all other dharmas. Yesterday we spoke about that a little bit, because Lord Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parigyajna mamikam sharan. He said, give up all your dharmas. So these dharmas are these subordinate dharmas, and take up the real dharma, which is to surrender to Krishna. Other dharmas may be, oh, I'm a householder, I have to take care of my family. Other dharmas may be, oh, I have to work, I have to study, I have this to do, I have that to do. You know, we have our own ideas about what is important in life, but the ultimate principle of religion is to surrender to Krishna. And all the other things, all the other dharmas, just like, oh, I want to be non-violent, you want, like Buddhism, they teach ahimsa as the ultimate principle of religion. That's a sub-religious principle. It's not the most important principle of religion. We spoke earlier about utilizing violence even in the service of Krishna. So the ultimate principle of religion is not ahimsa, and it's not practicing brahmacharya, and it's not just living on vegetables and fruit, but it's surrendering to Krishna. And then we define the phrase Sanatan Dharma. Does anyone remember? How did we define the phrase Sanatan Dharma?
Sanatan means eternal, dharma means religion, so we have to, we are part and parcel of Krishna, so we have to serve Krishna in that.
Yeah, anybody, anyone else?
For the first point, I just want to say something, that appearance of Krishna is due to forgetfulness of living entities, because they have, that is why the chain is broken. We forget even one day before what we learned. So that is the reason to re-establish the dharma.
We forget in course of time. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can we have another definition of Sanatan Dharma?
And dharma is occupation, Maharaj.
Yes, right.
Dharma
That's
means occupation, and Sanatan means eternal. So our Sanatan Dharma is to serve Krishna, to keep ourselves occupied in service of Krishna.
the eternal occupation of the soul, right?
Yes.
Our eternal occupation of the soul in relation to the Supreme Lord. Okay, that is actually Sanatan Dharma. And then compared the results of following Varnashram Dharma with the result of Sanatan Dharma. We compared the result. Following Varnashram Dharma, do we get benefit? Do you remember? What were some of the benefits we got from following Varnashram Dharma?
Yes, Maharaj. By following Varnashram Dharma, we can get elevated to the next levels. Like Shuddhi can become Brahmin and the other higher.
Yes,
also.
we might be we may elevate our status in this material world. Yes, in this lifetime we can elevate our status. Yes. Any other benefits of Varnashram?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, by following Varnashram Dharma, we will be prevented of falling into the lower species. And then by even Brahmanas, by following Varnashrama, the sacrifice of the animal, that instead of going into the cycle of 84 lakh species, we will be directly getting a human birth.
Well, when you said we protect ourselves from falling into the lower species, we didn't say that in relation to Varnashram Dharma. That was in relation to Sanatan Dharma. A little advancement, a little devotional service, that will save us from the greatest danger. But we didn't speak about Varnashram Dharma in that way. right?
Okay, Maharaj.
But the benefit of following Varnashram Dharma, we spoke about, yes, what other things?
Be elevated to higher planets.
Yes, right. Elevation to higher planets, open the doors to liberation.
Purification of senses.
Purification of senses. I don't know about that. But remember we spoke about stepping stones. Stepping stones, where? What are the purpose of the stepping stones?
For spiritual understanding.
Yes, to help us to make spiritual advancement. Right. So that these kind of things are important for us. Help us to make spiritual advancement, elevation to higher status, gradual development of self-realization. A gradual development of self-realization. We said those were the benefits of Varnashram Dharma. What about the results of Sanatan Dharma? What did we say was the results of Sanatan Dharma?
Living materially, we can spiritualize, we can transit.
Elevate our consciousness to the spiritual platform. Okay. Something else?
Sinful reactions, Maharaj.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Yes. Freedom from sinful reactions. And then also
Maharaj can save us from the most dangerous type of fear, which is to enter lower species of life like animals.
yes, right. Protect us from falling into the lower species. A little devotional service will save us from that danger. Yes. Okay. Understanding. Under what circumstances following Varnashram Dharma is necessary? When it's absolutely necessary, you have to do it. Who has to do it?
Those who are not liberated.
Yes, right, very good. Those who are not liberated, they must follow Varnashram Dharma. It's important for them. And what are the qualifications required for beginning the practice of Krishna consciousness?
Sincerity.
With references from Bhagavad Gita 3:26. So who was referring to 3:26? Who remembers some references from there about who can practice Krishna consciousness?
Sincerity and genuine desire.
Yes, can we have the quote from the Bhagavad Gita 3:26?
A slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in service of the Lord.
Who may be directly engaged in the service of the Lord?
A slightly developed Krishna conscious person.
A slightly developed. How does a person, who's qualified to become slightly developed? Anyone?
Who is willing to follow the instructions?
Yes, well, yeah, we heard earlier, yeah. Anybody who does a little practice of devotional service, a little, even a slight practice, a little interest in the beginning. Jayapataka Swami describes how he became a devotee. He wanted to go to India and he'd come to San Francisco and he'd heard there was a Rati Yatra festival, a festival of India. And so he went there to find out if he could help. And he got to the place where they were building the Rati Yatra chariots. And this devotee, Jayananda Prabhu, said to him, he said, "Oh, do you know how to use a hammer?" So he gave him a hammer. And he said his first service for Krishna was hammering nails into the Rath Yatra chariot. And so that was the beginning of his service for Krishna. He began his devotional service in that way. And many of us, of course, we had similar experiences. We come to the temple and we would do something, and maybe they ask us, can you take the garbage out? Could you sweep the temple? Could you wash the pot? Or something like this, you know? And this is the beginning of our practice of Krishna consciousness. So we're doing some punya karma. You could say agyata sukriti. Unknowingly we're doing some devotional activity. And that's qualifying us to take up Krishna consciousness. Right? And one more. The practice of Krishna consciousness is transcendental to Varnashram Dharma. Right? It's above Varnashram Dharma. Who can do Krishna consciousness? Anyone, from any Varna, from any ashram. Doesn't matter who they are, where they're coming from, they can take up Krishna consciousness. It doesn't depend on the Varna or the ashram. Is it clear to everyone? I hope so. Here's a quote from Prabhupada. Therefore, this is the panacea, to engage everyone in Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna. He comes above the highest principle of Brahmanism. This is the greatest gift to the humanity, that even he is in the fallen condition, the most degraded position, he can be raised to the highest position simply by chanting. This is the only remedy. A lecture from Los Angeles in 1968 from Bhagavad Gita 3.18 to 30. Oh, this is the only remedy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right, any questions? Anybody has any questions? Any challenges?
Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes, good.
Yeah, we discussed that highest principle is to surrender to Krishna and not anything else like ahimsa or things like that. So it is the highest principle for like all these principles can be ignored, or say highest principle is preaching also, or is it the same thing with preaching Krishna consciousness, or just surrender to Krishna, your own self?
Just surrender. Well, surrender to Krishna is the highest thing, yes. And by surrendering to Krishna, then all of the other things, like you spoke about ahimsa, and maybe, you know, practicing celibacy, or, you know, monavrat, all of these different things, they can all be related to the practice of Krishna consciousness. One who is Krishna conscious, one who is surrendered to Krishna, then he's automatically going to practice ahimsa. He's not going to go around killing creatures. Even when we pluck tulsi leaves, we offer a prayer to tulsi that, oh, please forgive me if I'm causing you any pain by plucking your flowers. So a devotee is very conscious of every living entity. We heard about Narada Muni coming to see Magrari the hunter. Magrari was sweeping the insects out of the path. Previously he'd been a hunter and he was killing the animals and trapping them and causing them so much pain. And they would die a slow and painful death. But after he became Krishna conscious, he couldn't even step on insects. And he would sweep them out of the path. I had a very interesting experience. One time I was with one man. He was an American man, and he was from the Mormon church. So he didn't know I was a Hare Krishna. I wasn't in my devotee dress or anything. Anyway, I was talking to him. And so it happened, we were in a country in Asia, and then suddenly this big cockroach appeared. A big cockroach came out. And when he saw it, he jumped on it with his foot. He stamped on with his foot. He stamped on it. And when he did that, I got a shock. I was so shocked that he did that. And he looked at me and he said, "In your religion, you don't even kill insects?" I didn't know what to say. Anyway, he kind of understood that I was really shocked that he killed this cockroach, and he was surprised. But, this is devotee. We're like that. We don't like to go around killing things. So we do practice ahimsa. Just by being Krishna conscious, we see Krishna in all living entities, and we're naturally conscious about them. Right? So these other qualities, the sub-religious principles, they all manifest, just like, being clean. Initially, when we came to Krishna consciousness, we're not so clean. We go to the toilet and we would never think of taking a shower or something. But after becoming devotees, when you go to evacuate, then you want to take a shower immediately. But before, as non-devotees, we never thought about that. It was not really the custom. And even in Western countries where it's cold, we have to shower every day. It just becomes natural to a devotee.
Yes, Maharaj. So, yes, what you said is all true, but like Prabhupada made some changes, but Prabhupada was definitely a great, pure devotee. But if needed for preaching, can there be minor changes made? Or?
Well, yes, of course. I mentioned some changes which Prabhupada made. I said he crossed the ocean. He crossed the ocean. Sannyasis are not supposed to cross the ocean. And he allowed women to go on the altar and worship the deity. And he allowed women's ashram even. The Brahmacharini ashram. So he gave women an opportunity to take part in the Krishna conscious activities. He did make some changes, and Prabhupada talks about the details and the principles. The principles have to be preserved, but the details can be adjusted. And details are like, our principle is vegetarian, but whether you eat Indian food or Chinese food or Mexican food or Italian food, whatever, that's a detail, but it must be vegetarian. So we can adjust the details, but we don't adjust the principles. Yeah?
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, anybody else has any other questions? Yes,
Maharaj?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, if we can achieve our target by offenseless chanting only, why we should preach about varnashram dharma at this time?
If we can get perfection just simply by chanting, why are we preaching about varnashram dharma? The problem is not everybody can chant. Not everyone's able to take up the chanting process. People have some bad habits. They have a different nature. Their psychophysical nature doesn't allow them to sit and chant. In Srila Prabhupada's time, in the beginning of our movement, there was this one young man who joined the movement, and he was there for some time, but then after a short time he came to Prabhupada and he said, "Swamiji," he said, "I can't do this." He said, "My father was a boxer." He said, I cannot just sit here and chant Hare Krishna and hold these beads." And so Prabhupada said, well, then go then. You go. Prabhupada answered, so what can we do, you know? We cannot force people to stay in Krishna consciousness. We give everyone an opportunity. Not everyone's able to take up the opportunity. So chanting Hare Krishna, it's special. Not everyone's able to sit and chant and take pleasure in chanting. We know, of course, if they will do it, they'll be greatly benefited, but still, we don't find that there's not so many takers who are willing to just come here and take up the chanting process. Yeah? There's no doubt if they'll do it, they can go back to Godhead, but not everyone will do it. Some people have prejudices about these things. Oh, they think this is religious. I'm not religious. I don't want to be religious. And they shy away from it. Anyway, we have to try our best to preach, to give the holy name. Even though they don't want to hear, we chant anyway. Yes? Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, just a quick question on clarification on Varnashram Dharma and Sanatana Dharma. And we just try to understand the differentiation in the results we achieve from each. Maharaj, it looks like Sanatana Dharma is an overarching principle. That's my eternal dharma, my duty. I'm supposed to be a servitor of Krishna, I must serve Krishna. And Krishna is my master. So that's Sanatana Dharma, boxed on one side. But when we look at Varnashram Dharma, that's also coming from Vedas, Vedas coming from Krishna. Can we not say that Varnashram Dharma is a subset or the lower set of Sanatana Dharma itself?
Well, they're on a very different platform. You see, the Varnashram Dharma is on the material platform. It's very much based on the material world, people's designations, and so on. These positions which people have, and well, not only positions, but occupations, ashrams, different natures people have. That's in the material world, but Sanatana Dharma is relating more to the soul, the nature of the soul, as a servant of Krishna, eternally a servant of Krishna. Varnashram Dharma is more the mind and body, our psychophysical nature. But Sanatana Dharma is the nature of the soul. So, by following Varnashram Dharma, well, we get benefit gradually. Gradually we can elevate ourselves. But Sanatana Dharma, for spiritual benefit, immediately we can feel the benefit, you can feel the results. You take up Krishna consciousness, you can immediately feel the change. The power of the chanting of the holy name and the practice of the discipline of Krishna consciousness is very powerful. Now, in Varnashram Dharma, it's a much more gradual, slow progress.
So Maharaj, are we saying Sanatana Dharma as Krishna consciousness?
Yes, Sanatana Dharma is Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes, and then there's another question here. Some more people.
Maharaj, could you please highlight about Daiva Varnashrama system?
Daivi Varnashram. But Daivi Varnashram system is that we'll do whatever is required. We don't identify ourselves as belonging to any particular ashram or varna, but we'll simply do whatever is required. It's all service for the Lord. Nobody is designated, no one's understood to be Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, but we'll do all the different duties, regardless of our position. Whatever needs to be done, we'll do it. If, in the Varnashram system, if you're a Brahmana, you're not going to clean. You know, you're very restricted what you're going to do. But in Daivi Varnashram, you can do everything for Krishna.
Can we say ISKCON is a Daiva Varnashrama system?
Oh yeah, yes. We practice Daivi Varnashram. We should do. Yes. Our farms, devotees are there. You can see sometimes the devotees are working in the fields, and they're brahmanas and like that. They may be worshipping the deity in the morning, then they go and work in the field, or they take care of the cows. That's Daivi Varnashram. Yeah?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Yes, we have another question here.
Hare Krishna. I just want to conclude from this that we have to keep balance in between Varnashram and Sanatana Dharma because we have material body. So we should, I think so, this is the learning, Maharaj?
Yes.
Because
Yes, we have to practice. We also respect Varnashram. We have material bodies. We're not liberated souls, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to become liberated, but we're not fully liberated, so we do practice Varnashram. We follow the different Varnas and ashram. We engage ourselves accordingly. Yes?
So without following Varnashram, we can't directly go for Sanatana Dharma, that means.
No, we can. Externally we engage in Varnashram, but we also practice Krishna consciousness. We do have to practice Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, externally we follow Varnashram, but internally we're engaging in Krishna consciousness.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So just now, Maharaj, you mentioned about principles of religion, and you said one of them was mercy, and for that Prabhupada said that we should not no meat eating. So and currently, like nowadays in the world, especially in places like America and all, there's this new philosophy and concept coming up that they get humans, other people, to sign a contract, and these humans agree that after they die, they will allow their body to be consumed as food, so that you don't have to kill other animals and torture them. So people use this. They are saying that we are not torturing anyone, so it's not, no one is getting hurt here. We are eating the dead bodies of other human beings, and they agree to it. So how do we challenge this argument, Maharaj?
Well, dead bodies, there are people like that. There's a religion called Parsi, and the Parsis worship fire, so they don't burn the bodies. They will offer the dead bodies to the vultures, and the vultures come and eat the dead carcasses, the dead bodies of people. And it's a Parsi religion. In Krishna consciousness, we do burn the dead bodies because, well, the body's dead. And by the final rites, you see the actual cremation of the body, that detaches the soul and detaches all the people also from that body. The relatives and so on who are related to the dead person, they will feel attachment to that dead body. but by the cremation, the actual act of the final rites, then that detaches them from it. And so we do have that tradition in the Vedic culture that the body should be burned, or sometimes the body is put into samadhi, and sometimes very young children, they may be put onto the boat, and they may be put on a banana boat down the Ganga, sometimes like that, you know. There are different ways of preparing for the dead body, for the last rites of the person. But feeding the body, letting the dead body become food for another living entity, well, it's already there. If you bury the body will become food for the insects, the worms within the body. There's intestinal worms and so on. They eat up the flesh of the body. If they put the body into the ground, like in Christianity or Islam, then the body is eaten by the different creatures, insects and so on, which are there in the earth. And so it does happen.
But Maharaj, what's going on is people are saying that this dead body, they are giving it as food for other human beings, for human consumption. They get the owner, and the owner, they sign a contract saying that after they die, they can, their body can be used as food for the people, and in this way they don't.
Well, it's not food for people. It's not food for human consumption. It's not what, there's food in the mode of goodness, food in the mode of passion, and food in the mode of ignorance. So people are going to eat human flesh, that is food in the mode of ignorance. And by acting in the mode of ignorance, then they become more deeper entangled in the mode of ignorance. Next life they may become vultures. It's not anything which we support. It's just people in the mode of ignorance who want to do this. To eat human flesh, that is not civilized. Okay, any other questions, Prabhu?
One last question.
Maharaj, you've already answered my question, but I just wanted to know, you just said three things, food in the mode of goodness, ignorance, and one more thing, passion.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, food in the modes, right? So you eat human flesh, that's the darkest ignorance. Okay.
Even Maharaj, to say this, we say that our bodies, they've been given to us by Krishna to serve the Krishna. So if we're trying to, support these kind of arguments, it's like we are using our bodies for our own sense gratification. So there is no chance of, elevation or, anything in the next birth or whatever. So that's not supportive.
Yeah.
That's not civilized.
That's definitely not civilized, right? We use our body for the service of Krishna, and we eat food which is first offered to Krishna. That's important for us. Okay, thank you, Maharaji. Hare Krishna. All right, so thank you very much. We'll finish here, and we'll be back next week. Was that another question? Yes?
No, Maharaj.
No? Okay, so we'll finish, Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Go back to Vrinda ki.
Maharaj,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.